Good evening, everyone. Please confirm if I'm audible or not. Labiba and Zainab, please confirm if I'm audible. Just a minute.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah, hello, good evening, everyone. Labiba and Zainab, please confirm if I'm audible to both of you or not. Hello.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, thank you so much, Labiba. Zainab, you there? Zainab, are you there?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. So, all right, everyone. So, just tell me, we have decided to start journal entry in the previous session, right? We have started. Just a minute, let me check. We have started cash book in the last class, but then someone of you wanted me to start the journal entry, chapter number 6, right now. So shall we continue with this with the chapter, or do you want me to continue with the cash book only? Guys, am I audible to you, all of you?
Yes, sir, but your voice is little low.
My audio is little low.
Yeah.
Let me check just a minute. All right, just tell me if it is better now. Is it better now, Labiba?
Listen a little bit better.
A little bit better.
Yeah.
Tell me now. Is it better now?
Yes, sir, it's fine now.
All right. Okay. All right, both of you. So we have to start this chapter. Both of you put this heading on your notebook. Put the name of the chapter on your notebook. Chapter number 6, journal entry. And in between, we have skipped a few topics. Like before the journal entry, we usually cover the cash book, and then we also do subsidiary book. But never mind, we will start that later after covering this chapter. However, general, this chapter is considered to be one of the difficult chapter for the students since they are being introduced to the journal entry for the very first time. So it is a comparatively difficult chapter as compared to the cash book and the subsidiary book. And therefore, I usually start with the cash book first and then come to the journals. But anyways, since you wanted me to start the journal, so let's start the journal. Okay, so first of all, we'll start with the meaning of the journal. What do you understand by the journal? Okay, so first of all, covering the meaning of the journal, we can say journal is a book in which all kind of transactions are recorded in the chronological order. So if we talk about the journal, First of all, what is journal? So journal is a book. It is an accounting book, right? In which transactions are recorded in the chronological order. Book of account. It is a book of account wherein we record each and every transaction taking place in the business premises. Each and every transaction. We record each and every transaction taking place in the journal book and in the order, in the chronological order. Every transactions are recorded in the journal. In what order? In the chronological order. So what do you mean by chronological order? Chronological order means as and when the transaction takes place, we record the transaction accordingly. So, I mean, all the transactions are recorded date-wise, time-wise. So, any transaction which have taken place earlier need to be recorded earlier, and all the transactions that have taken place later, then such transaction will be recorded on a later date. So that means all the transactions are to be recorded here in the journal, but in what order? In the chronological order. I mean, the date-wise, all the transactions are to be recorded date-wise, right? And since it record all the transactions, therefore, this is also known as book of original entry. This is also called book of original entry. So you have to understand that why we are calling it the book of original entry, because whenever any transactions are to be recorded for the very first time, where do we record it? We record it in the journal. So journal is a book where transactions are recorded for the very first time, and therefore, since the transactions are being recorded for the first time, therefore we are calling it the book of original entry. And after the journal, we tend to prepare other books as well, like the journal, ledger, and other books are there as well. The cash book, subsidiary book, all other books are prepared later. But first of all, we prepare the journal. We record all the transaction in the chronological order. I mean the date wise. Then therefore it is called the book of original entry, right? And if you talk about the features of the journal, let's say if we talk about the features, what are the features of the journal? Firstly, features of journal. One of the feature of journal is that it record all the day-to-day transaction, record day-to-day transaction. It record all the day-to-day transaction taking place in the business. Number one. Number two, it record all the record both the aspect of any transaction. See, while doing the accounting equation, if you're able to recall, I've told you that there are two aspects of any transaction. One is the debit aspect and one is the credit aspect, right? Every transaction affect at least two things, debit and credit. So in the while doing the journal, we tend to record both the aspects of a transaction, both aspects of transactions are taken into consideration. So what do you mean by both the aspect? By both the aspect, I mean the debit aspect of the transaction as well as the credit aspect of the transaction. Both the aspects are taken into consideration while passing the journal entry. You will be able to understand this feature when we will actually be doing the journal entry for any transaction. But for the time being, just keep that in mind. Every transaction have two aspects, debit and credit. And by journalizing the transaction, we tend to cover both the aspect of any transaction. How a transaction will affect the debit side of account, or how it will affect the credit side. We cover both the aspect of a transaction through journal, right? And the process of recording the transaction in the journal, what do we call it? The process of recording the transaction in the journal book is called journalizing. This is called journalizing. Journalizing is the feature of recording the transaction in the journal book, in the book of original entry. All right. And the way you record the transaction, see, the process is called journalizing, but the way you record the transaction, that is called journal entry. We record all the transaction in the form of journal entry. Keep that in mind. In the journal, we tend to record all the items in the form of journal entry. And the process of recording the transaction, that will be called journalizing. All right, I hope this point is clear to both of you. Right?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
And through journal, you will be able to you will be able to get the complete detail of any transaction. This is one of the feature of the journal. It gives you complete information, complete details or information about a particular transaction, details of transaction. Through journal entry, we will be able to understand how much of the quantity has been purchased and at what price it has been purchased. Everything you will be able to determine through the journal. So journal is what? As I told you, journal is a book of account that record the transaction in the chronological order, and therefore, because it record all the transactions are first recorded in the journal, and therefore it is called the book of original entry. If we talk about the feature, there are various features. One few important features of the journal is that we record all the day-to-day transaction in it, and it by recording the transaction, we cover both the aspect of any transaction. The process of recording the transaction in the journal is called journalizing, and the way we record the transaction, that is called journal entry, right? And the through journal, you will be able to get the complete detail of any transaction. So these are the few important feature of the journal. Now, if we talk about the format of the journal, how do we actually prepare the journal? What is the format of the journal? So this is how the journal is made. First of all, we put the heading as journal, and few columns are there, just like cash book or any other account. We have few column in the journal as well. So first column is for the date of transaction. Since every transactions are to be recorded in the chronological order, right? I mean, every transaction needed to be recorded in the needed to be recorded date wise. Therefore, the column of date is very important in the journal. Then we then the particulars, column for particulars. Then an extra column. Then there will be an extra column for ledger folio. Ledger folio is written as LF. And then two column. One is for the debit aspect of the transaction, recording the debit aspect of the transaction, and the other is for recording the credit aspect of a transaction. Right, as I told you, every transaction have two aspects, debit and credit. If the debit side aspect, I mean the debit side value will be recorded under this column, and credit side value will be recorded here in the credit column. I hope it is clear. Zainab and Labiba, please confirm if it is clear or not.
Yes, sir, it's clear.
It's clear. Okay, guys. So I want both of you to start writing. Let me show you the definition first of all. This is the format that I was talking about. Please put the heading journal and start writing the meaning first of all. Once you are done, let me know so that I can change the slide. Then just let me know whenever you are done, both of you. Labiba and Zainab. Am I audible to both of you?
Yes, sir, I'm done.
You are done. Zainab, what about you? Done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is also known as book of original entry. Please write this down as well.
Done, sir.
Done. Okay. Please write down these features. Just put the headings. Don't write all the things. Just write down the key points. Like feature of the journal is it record day-to-day transaction. So you can write it as it record day-to-day transactions in the chronological order, obviously. It record both the aspects of the transaction. I mean the debit aspect and the credit aspect of the transaction. See, every transaction have two aspects, debit and credit. So it tends to record all both the aspect of the transaction. Then the process of recording the transaction in the journal is called the journalizing, and the way we record the transaction, that is called journal entry. And journal is a record that shows complete detail of transaction. These are the features of the journal. Done. Shall we move to the next slide? Labiba, you are still writing it?
Done, sir.
You're done. Zainab, please confirm you are done. Okay. So this is the format of the journal. I think you must understood the format of the journal, na? I don't think you need to write this. So let's continue to the next slide.
Very clear with this one.
Sorry,
I'm saying very clear with this one.
you want to write this one?
No, I'm saying that we are clear with this one.
Okay,
I
okay,
know
all
this thing, the format.
all right. Okay. Now see, we will now directly start with the question. But see, before starting the question, you must have idea about the rules of debit and credit, right? Unless until you are able to recall these rules that we covered in the while covering the third chapter, you won't be able to pass the general entry. So you must have clear-cut idea about the rules of debit and credit. So let's just quickly revise the rules of debit and credit, and then we will start with the question. All right. So let's quickly recall the rules of various rules of debit and credit. What are the various rules of debit and credit? So start, and I'll talk about the modern accounting approach only. We can consider the traditional accounting approach as well, but for the time being, I'll revise the modern accounting, the rules of debit and credit as per the modern accounting approach. So what were the rules? Rules of debit and credit. As per modern accounting approach. You don't have to write this down, just understand. I'm trying to give you a quick recap. As per modern accounting approach. So as per modern accounting approach, we have how many types of account? 5 types of account, right? First of all, asset, then liability, then expenses, revenue, and capital. All right, and let's talk about the rules. Rule for the asset account says whenever asset increases, debit the asset account. Whenever asset reduces, credit asset account. Whereas for liabilities, it is just opposite. For liability, whenever liability increases, you need to credit it. Whenever liability reduces, we need to debit the liability account, right? And for the expense, the rule for the expense is similar to the rule of asset, which says debit whenever expenses increases, we need to debit expense account. And whenever expenses reduces, we need to credit expense account. All right. And the rule for revenue is similar to the rule of liability, which says whenever revenue increases, credit revenue account. Whenever it decreases, just debit it. And rule for the credit, the capital is also similar to the rule of asset, which says whenever capital increases, credit, whenever capital reduces, debit. So you can see that rule of the asset and expenses are same, and rule for liability and revenue and capital is also same. Got it? Is this clear? Everyone, everybody, both of you are able to recall this. We already covered these things previously. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we will talk about the journal entries. So let's quickly start with a small question. Okay. So this is the first question. It says Ramesh have started business and introduced capital. Right. Now this need to be journalized. We need to pass the journal entry for this. But before passing the journal entry, you have to tell me that if Ramesh is starting the business, which two areas of business this event is affecting? Which two things of the business this event is affecting? Let me help you. See, when Ramesh will start business and introduce capital of rupees 1 lakh, two things will happen. Firstly, it will affect the cash balance of the business, and it will also affect the capital of the business, right? Labiba, is that clear? When Ramesh will invest 1 lakh into the business, this is going to affect the cash balance as well as the capital of the business. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Could you please tell me how both these items will get affected?
Sir,
Whether cash
the cash will increase. No, cash will decrease and the capital will increase.
will decrease, are you sure?
Sir, he started. No. It's in the business, capital.
Yes,
Capital will increase and cash will also increase. Both will
correct.
increase.
Capital increases and cash will also increase, right? Now, see, tell me whether cash is an asset, liability, revenue. As per the modern
Asset.
accounting approach, cash falls under which account?
Yes, sir.
Asset, right? So you can clearly see asset is increasing, right?
Yes, sir.
And capital have different specific category capital by the name of capital,
Yes.
right? So capital increasing and asset is increasing. So tell me, what do I need to do? As per the rule, since cash is increasing and
Asset.
cash is an asset, so we need to debit the cash account, right? And
And the
capital is also increasing, and capital is itself a cap because it is a capital, so we need to credit. Because capital is increasing, we need to credit the capital account. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So see, this is how we pass the journal entry. Let me help you. Let me give you the journal entry for this. See, we'll write down, since cash is increasing and cash is an asset, so cash account will be debited. So we'll write it like this: cash account debit by how much? 1 lakh. This indicate that cash is increasing. This statement in this entry indicate that cash is increasing. And we'll write down to capital account 1 lakh. Got it? Is this clear to you? This is how this transaction will be journalized. This is called journal entry. What do we call it? We call it journal entry. Journal entry. We call it journal entry. Is it clear to you? Tell me, Zainab and Labiba, is it clear or not?
It's clear.
It's clear. Okay. Just a minute. All right. So see, firstly, we need to understand the effect of any transaction, and then we need to pass the journal entry after considering the rule of debit and credit. So as effect of this transaction is, it is affecting the cash as well as the capital. And the rule says whenever cash is getting increased, we need to debit the asset cash account, and whenever capital increases, we need to credit the capital account. So the journal entry for this will be cash account debit to capital account. And see, we need to show the narration as well. Narration indicate the explanation of any transaction. What is happening in this journal entry? We are debiting cash account and to crediting capital account. So we need to explain what are we trying to do in the journal entry, and for that we do the narration. So we have written being amount invested in a business. So this narration explains what is the purpose of this journal entry, right? Why are we passing the journal entry? So we are passing the journal entry because amount is being invested in the business. This is called narration. What do we call it? We call it narration. All right. I hope this point is clear, both of you. If it is clear, please note it. And if it is not, please tell me your doubt. Labiba and Zainab.
Sir, it's clear. It's clear.
It's
All
clear.
right.
Please note this quickly.
Okay.
Everything, the effect, the rules, and the journal effect, journal entry. Sorry. Just tell me whenever you are done so that we can move to the next slide. Done, Zainab?
Sir, I'm done.
Zainab, please confirm if you're done or not.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next transaction. Purchase furniture for rupees 50,000 paid in cash. Now, first of all, tell me the effect of this transaction. And please tell me the effect, Zainab. Zainab will tell me the effect of this transaction quickly.
Cash will decrease
Mm-hmm.
and furniture will increase.
Perfect. Very good. So furniture will increase, cash will decrease, right? Now see, cash is what? Cash is an asset. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And furniture is also an asset. So one
Yes, sir.
asset is increasing, one is decreasing. Whenever
Yes.
the asset which increase, we need to debit that asset, and the asset which is decreasing, we need to credit it, right? So rule says decrease in asset need to be credited, increase in asset need to be debited. So that means the general entry for this question will be, we will debit which account? Tell me, we will debit which account? Furniture or the cash?
Furniture.
Furniture, and cash will be credited. So the general entry will be furniture account debit to cash account. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, please note this. Please note it down.
Done, sir.
Done, Labiba?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the third transaction, paid rent 15,000. So tell me the effect of this transaction. Labiba, please tell me the effect of this transaction. Rent is being paid.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a expense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the expense is increasing,
Mm-hmm. That's right.
and then the cash
Uh-huh.
is decreasing.
Perfect. That's correct. Cash is reducing, expenses are increasing. So expense is since it is an expense, whenever expense increases, what is the rule regarding the
Debit.
expense? Yes, and whenever cash
Debit.
reduces, we need to credit the cash because it is an asset. So rule, as per rule, decrease in asset need to be credited, increase in asset expenses need to be debited. So applying this rule, we will pass the general entry, rent account debit to cash account, being rent paid.
Sir, can I ask one now?
Yeah, sure.
Sir, this one now for the journal entry for I think this one. So it is like we wrote rent account to cash account. Like so that two should come only under the rent, like a little bit space after that, or we can directly write this one.
Sorry, I couldn't understand your question. I think there's some problem with your mic. Your voice is very feeble. Could you speak a little louder? Yeah. Labiba, ask your question.
Yes, sir. Is my voice clear now?
Yeah. It is
Okay,
better
sir,
way.
I was asking that the euros, right, like in the journal entry for this one, rent account to cash account, this one, like I'm talking about the second one, the to cash account, it should be written only after leaving some space, or we can directly write it under the rent part.
Yeah, see, this is custom. We need to follow the custom. And while writing the credit transaction, while writing the credit item that need to be credited with, we leave some space. This is a custom which is followed in account. This need to be left. All
So
right.
that is important.
That is important. Yes, this is important. We need to follow
Okay.
the custom. All right.
Okay, sir. Okay, all right.
Just like while preparing the account, whenever you prepare account, you have to write on the credit side any transaction needed to be recorded. We always use buy as prefix before recording such transaction. Buy, let's suppose buy rent or buy anything, buy depreciation, and any item being recorded on the debit side of the account, we tend to use to as prefix, like to cash, to bank, to furniture. So this is custom in account which is followed everywhere. So we need to follow the custom. Okay. Moving on to the item number 4, transaction 4. Purchase goods against check rupees 50,000. Now, Zainab, please tell me how this transaction is going to affect. What is the effect of this transaction? Zainab, tell me quickly.
Goods will increase
Mm-hmm.
and then
Goods will increase and
cash will reduce.
cash, not cash. See, we are paying
Check.
through check, and check, whenever check is
Credit.
issued, we our bank balance will reduce, na, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that is going to affect the goods as well as the bank balance. How it is going to affect the goods and bank? Goods will increase and bank
Bank
will
balance will
decrease,
decrease.
right? See, now whenever you purchase goods, purchasing of goods is an expense for the business. Keep that in mind. Whenever you purchase goods, it is an expense for the business, right? So whenever goods are purchased, because it is an expense, and whenever payment is being made out of check, we assume that bank will reduce. So when bank is reducing and expenses are increasing, what do? We write it as purchase account debit to bank account. See, whenever goods are purchased, we do not pass the journal entries as goods account debit to bank account. Never. Whenever goods are purchased, purchases of goods are treated as an expense. So the rule of expense will be applicable and not the rule of asset. Whenever purchase of goods have whenever a business is purchasing goods, it will be treated as an expense. And whenever expense increase, we need to debit the expense account. And in this case, expense account is the purchase account. I hope it is clear. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Note this down quickly. Both of you note this quickly, because we need to cover a lot of transactions before coming to the full-fledged question based on the journal entry. We have various transactions, like
Done, sir.
9 transactions are there. Only then we will be able to start the full-fledged question based on it. Okay, moving on to the next transaction. Next is 5. Sold goods for rupees 25,000 against check. Now tell me how this is going to affect the various aspect of the business.
Sold
Maybe-
goods for against check. So that says this one is credit, right?
Sorry,
This one like for against check, it means the credit, right?
what is I'm not able to understand your point.
Sir, I'm saying that this is a credit transaction, right? Somehow.
It is a credit transaction.
Okay,
No,
I was just
no. This
No?
is not a credit transaction, na. See, sold goods for check means somebody have made the payment by check. We have received a check at the time of selling of goods. This is not a credit transaction. We are not selling goods on credit. That is what you are trying to say.
Sir, So like the person gave us the check, but we did not get the money, right? We have to go to the bank to get the money.
Yeah, we will simply presume that the check, the amount being received through check is definitely get credited to the bank. We will assume it. We will assume that check will be honored in the bank. Check will pass in the bank. It will not dishonor. So that means whenever somebody is paying through the check, we will simply increase our bank balance. And later, if it get dishonored by chance, then later we will subtract the bank balance. Like suppose if the 25,000 of payment has been received by check, we'll first of all increase our bank balance. But later, if it get dishonored, we will simply reduce 25,000 out of it because it get dishonored. I hope this point is clear. Labiba, is it clear to you?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Okay. So sold goods for rupees 25,000 against check. First of all, selling of goods, just like purchasing of goods is an expense, selling of good is a revenue. Whenever we sell
Yes.
good, it is a revenue, right? And the amount of check that we are receiving, it is going to increase the bank balance. So
Yes.
through this transaction, bank
And
will
the
increase
goods
and
will also, okay, yeah.
bank will increase and the revenue will also increase. Whenever we sell goods, it is a revenue. So revenue is increasing and bank will also increase. So since bank is an asset and revenue is obviously because it is a revenue, so the rule of revenue will be applicable. Sale of goods is a revenue. So rule of revenue says whenever revenue increases, we credit the revenue account, and whenever asset increases, we debit the asset account. So as per the rule, bank account will be debited and sales account will be credited. Will you be able to remember this? Bank will
Yes, sir.
increase, sales will decrease. So sorry, sales will also increase. So sales account credit, bank account debit. Please note this down. Bank account will increase to sales account. Bank account debit to sales account being good sold against check.
Sir, I am also done.
Okay. Next. Next is paid salary of rupees 50,000 for the month of December 2016. For the month of December 2016. So for through this, cash will reduce and salary, because salary is an expense, right? So salary, if we are paying salaries, so expenses will increase. Could any one of you please tell me the journal entry for this? What will be the journal entry for this transaction?
Asset, the cash is asset, and then
Cash is an asset,
the
obviously.
then the salary is an expense. So it will be debited and then the cash will be credited.
So salary account debit to cash account, can be write it like this?
No. Okay, like that's one in that way. Okay, fine. Yeah.
Salary account debit to cash account, right?
Sir, after that, is it important for us to write the narration also?
Yeah, you should write down the narration as well.
Is this important?
Yes, it is important. No, see, since we are just starting the concept, we have just started the journals. So it is important for the time being that you should write down the narration. But most of the time, teachers say when even if you don't write down the narration, then you will get the same marks. So for the examination, from the examination point of view, it may not be important depending upon your school and teacher. But as for me, this is important. You should write down the narration. but sometimes teachers exempt writing the narration. Teacher may allow you to not write the narration for any journal entry. That will be fine as well. But we should write down the
But
narration.
okay, so but how would we know that whether the examiner wants us to write or not?
You
So we should just simply write.
see that's why I'm
Yeah.
saying, yeah, that's what that's why I'm saying you should generally write up the narration. Or if you have a doubt, you can ask your teacher, your school teacher, whether she want you to write down the narration for the question or not. In boards, you have to write down the narration.
Sir, our school teacher wants us to write everything.
So then
It's hard
you shouldn't
writing
ask this
everything.
question to me. Then I
No, I
think
was just asking whether she's telling or is it actually important?
it is important since, see, as I told you, journal tells about, gives us the detail about the transaction, right? So it gives us all the detail, and through narration we get that detail. Why, what this is journal, what is the purpose of passing the journal entry? We get to know this through the narration. So therefore it is important.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Okay, shall we move to the next slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Item number 7, transaction 7, interest received rupees 1000 in cash. Zainab will tell me the effect, the rule, and the journal entry for this. Tell me, interest received rupees 1000 in cash.
Cash will increase by 1000
Mm-hmm.
and interest.
Interest is what? Interest is an expense, revenue, capital, asset, liability.
Revenue.
Yes, correct. That's perfect. So this means cash is increasing and revenue is also increasing, right? And
Yes,
whenever
sir.
cash increases, we debit the cash account. But what happens when revenue increases?
Credit.
Credit. So the journal entry for this transaction will be, tell me.
What, sir?
Journal entry for this question will be what?
Interest received
Mm-hmm.
to cash.
No, cash is increasing now, so we need to debit cash. So when any item getting debited, we need to write that first. Cash account debit, cash account will be debited to
Interest
interest account or interest received
Yeah,
account. You
interest
can write
amount.
that as well. So cash account to interest received account, right?
Yes.
Please note it quickly.
Sir, I'm done.
Done, Zainab? Okay. Transaction
Yes.
8. Paid to creditors Sujit rupees 5000. Now this is important. Paid to creditor Sujit. Tell me how this is going to affect the asset and liability or any other account. Labiba, could you please tell me?
Yes, sir. This one is a bit confusing, but pay to creditor Sujit for rupees 5,000. Sir, no, not this one.
So one aspect should be very clear, na? Since we are
The cash?
paying creditor rupees 5000,
Yeah,
that is going to that will definitely affect the cash balance, right?
yeah,
Cash will reduce, and Sujit is
yes.
our creditor. Once we pay our
That's
creditor,
the
creditor will
increase.
reduce,
We
na?
had
creditor is a liability. You remember that?
Yes, sir. So, sir, the Sujit account will increase.
No. Not Sujit account will increase. Sujit account will decrease. Sujit is our creditor, right? Sujit is our creditor. A creditor is a liability. We are paying off the liability. So when we pay off the liability, the overall liability will reduce. And at the same time, cash will also reduce, right? So cash is reducing and Sujit is a creditor that is also reducing. And that means if creditor is reducing, account need to be debited, liability account need to be debited, and cash is an asset need to be credited. So the general entry for this question will be, tell me, Sujit account debit to cash account, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Sujit, who is our creditor, account debit to cash account, 5,000, 5,000.
Okay.
Hope this point is clear. All right, please quickly write this down, and then we'll move to the last example. And I'll give you one question for your homework.
Done, sir.
Sir, I am also done.
Okay. Last one. Receive from debtor Amit 10,000. Amit is one of our debtor who is paying us 10,000. So when Amit will pay 10,000, this is going to increase the cash. And at the same time, since Amit has paid 10,000, right? So Amit, the debtor will reduce by 10,000. We we won't be able to claim 10,000 from Amit anymore, right? Since he already paid 10,000. So our overall claim upon Amit will reduce by 10,000. Is that right? So this transaction is going to reduce the debtor as well as it is going to increase the cash. So the rule, when we will apply the rule, we can simply say that since the asset is increasing, we need to debit the cash account, and since the debtor is reducing, Amit is reducing, then we need to credit the account. So the general entry for this will be cash account debit to Amit account being received from Amit. Is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Please note it down quickly.
Sir, so that like in the exams or maybe like in test or whatever, the questions like it will be written and then we have to write effects, rule and everything by ourselves in the documentary?
No. This is
No?
just an example. I'm just explaining things in detail. In exam, items are given, and based on each item, you just need to write down the journal entry for the transaction. And you need to just prepare one single format for recording all the transaction. So this is for, let's suppose, item number 9, then item 10, below it, you just draw a straight line and then start passing the journal entry for the next transaction, then next transaction, then next, and so on.
Okay, sir. So basically it's like more like a table, like a whole journal
Yeah,
entry.
this will be a table wherein you will be recording all the transaction without showing the effect and rule. I'm just explaining the things in detail so that it gets easier for you to understand how and on what basis we are passing the journal entry. Therefore, I have made the slide in detail. You don't have to actually show the effect and rules of every transaction.
Okay.
Mhm.
Sir, I'm done writing this.
Okay. So this is it. In today's class, we understood the meaning of the journal. We understood that journal is a book that records the transaction, the chronological order, and it records every day-to-day transaction. The process of recording the transaction in the journal is called journalizing, and the way we write it, we call it journal entry, right? And one of the key feature of the journal is that it gives us the detail about a particular transaction. Then we did 9 example to understand how and what on what basis we pass the journal entry. Now I'm giving you one question. Take the screenshot of this question. You need to pass the journal entry for all these items. Now see, this is not a very easy question. This is a little difficult. You may find it difficult since we haven't yet done any question based on the journal. I was just covering the example, but I still want you to try these questions. We'll cover this question in the next class as well. But first of all, I want you to try this once, and then I'll help you understand this. Just take the screenshot.
Sir, these April 1, April 2, April 3, we have to write in the date column, in the journal entry.
Yeah. You have to prepare the format, like the
Okay.
date, the particular, LF column,
Yeah.
and the column for the debit and credit. The amount that need to be debited will be written under the debit column, and the amount need to be credited required to be written in the credit column.
Okay, sir.
Okay. All right. So screenshot taken.
Yes, sir.
All right, Labiba. So now both of you can leave the session. Labiba and Zainab will be covering more questions based on the journal in the next class. Till then, take care. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye.
Sir, if there is any doubt, I will leave it in between itself because it already looks very complicated.
If you have any doubt, sorry.
No, sir, I'm saying that if I have any doubt, I will leave it because it already looks very complicated.
Yeah. I just want you to try at least. Just give it a
Okay.
try. Even if you have problems, just give it a try. Otherwise, I'll be solving you for this question for you.
Okay.
Hmm.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right. Okay, bye. Hello, Prerna and Shifa. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.